Welcome, everyone. This is our second episode of the program on the trail of science, tracks, and trajectories of OTS alumni. Uh, every journey leaves footprints, but the ones made in the wild have a way of staying with us for life. Here on this show, we dive into memories and moments that go beyond the ordinary classroom. We delve into the lives of OTS alumni who have walked and learned from the wild and have carried home rather a piece of either Africa or Costa Rica, or both in some cases, and that continues to shape their lives from cultural encounters to career changing, defining insights to new perspectives and to lasting connections among students and staff members. On each episode, we try to trace these incredible journeys and sojourns across continents and careers as the students or alumni are today. I am your host, Zing, and today I am thrilled to have joined with me on the show Max Links, who is an OTS alumni, and I wouldn't want to speak a lot about him. I would allow him to do his introduction, but Max, welcome to the show, and I'm really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. This is so awesome. I'm super excited to be talking all about OTS. I always love when people ask about my experience. I love talking about South Africa. So this is really awesome. It's great to be on a call with you, Zing. I'm super excited to talk about OTS today. Also, just to introduce myself, I'm Max. I'm from Westminster, Colorado. I recently graduated from Cornell, where I studied environment and sustainability with minors in biology and East Asian studies. I've done a lot of diplomacy type work, but then also academic research, first through OTS and then later through a global development research group at Cornell. And now I'm on a Fulbright fellowship teaching English in Taiwan.
Fantastic. That's very interesting. I mean, from OTS to Cornell to Taiwan. Well, over the next few minutes, we hopefully will try to unpack all of that sort of story and see how we could sort of stitch them up together. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that before the end of the show. But let's kind of dial back and start from where it started with you and OTS. How did you hear about OTS? And what program did you attend and when? Let's just wrap these two together.
Yeah, I did the African Ecology and Conservation in spring 2023, which was my junior spring. I remember browsing through my school study abroad website at the beginning of my junior year and thinking, wow, I'm seeing a lot of similar opportunities. Like, I'm not feeling super strongly. And then I came across this one called the Organization for Tropical Studies. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. It was one of the few that was available outside of Europe. I met the standards to apply, and I became so interested. I was immediately talking about it to everybody, and I applied and got in.
Fantastic. Great. So at that stage, you applied, you got in, and at that point, you have never been to Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I had
Right.
only ever been to Japan
Right.
10 years prior, and so it
Right.
was. Yeah.
So what really drew you to South Africa at that point, and how at that moment, I'm just trying to make you reflect back, how did you hope that the OTS or the South African experience would help to shape your studies and your future goals?
Yeah, just like you alluded to, what really drew me from Cornell to OTS was how different it would be. I always knew that I was going to study abroad, and I wanted to just totally shake up my world. I wanted to go from, taking classes, going to lecture back at Cornell, and I wanted to do something very different. I wanted to indulge a different interest. I wanted to be very intellectually adventurous during undergrad. And so for that reason, I was really, really drawn to OTS. Obviously it's very research oriented. It's not like you're just sitting in a classroom doing classes. I very memorably, I remember our lectures out in the field or on the GDV when we were driving around. Like that was lecture, and that was just so awesome. So I just really saw it as an opportunity to challenge myself and help me become a better thinker for whatever my future career was going to be. I was interested in a lot of different things, including possibly field research. But regardless, at the end of the day, I knew that this would make me a better thinker and that it would be absolutely so fun. And I was correct.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up questions was were these expectations met by the time that you were done with the course in South Africa?
Wow. What were my expectations?
Yeah, kind of these thoughts that you just shared about what you were hoping to achieve by the time you were done with the course, by the sort of fast forward to the end of the course, which lasted 100 days, would you, at that point, did you feel that yes, what you thought about and had these expectations about what the course would be and the influence it would have on your career and
Mm.
future goals, were those met during those 100 days?
Yes, they were met and far exceeded. I wanted to get into research, and boy did I get into research while we were there. It was really awesome to have such great mentorship, but also have opportunities such as attending the Savannah Research Conference that we got to go to, and getting to talk with so many different people in so many different fields. I feel like I got a huge crash course in what it meant to be a researcher, and especially a researcher in ecology. I also was really interested in getting outside of that sort of urban bubble that a lot of people get caught up in. And we spent like, almost all of the semester out in the field. And that was really awesome. So I expected these things and I wanted them, but I didn't expect how how much contact I would get, how much exposure I would get, how much I
Mhm.
would be allowed to learn. And that was really, really awesome.
Fantastic. Now, just to kind of share a bit more details, you did mention the Savannah Network Conference. I'll just talk about that just for a second for the benefit of our listeners who might not be familiar with that. So there is the Savannah Network meeting, or the Savannah Network Conference, which holds in Skukuza, the Kruger National Park, every year. It's an annual conference, but it is an international conference that draws attendance and speakers from all over the world: Africa, New Zealand, Australia, the United States. And it's quite well attended. Students who attend OTS course, especially in the spring semester, which is the semester with around about the time when the conference holds, also get the opportunity of attending. For some of the students, it is the first international conference experience for them. For a few, they probably might have experienced one or two, but nothing in the nature of the Savannah Network Conference. And they really get to interact with speakers on the conference. They get to engage with the contents of the presenters, and it becomes part of the deliverables that happens during the course. So Max attended OTS during one of this periods, and he got to attend this, like you mentioned. So fantastic experience. I personally always enjoy going to the Savannah Network Conference. It's a great networking platform, I would say.
Yeah. I also want to pick up on that thread because it was my first conference, as you're saying. And then a little over a year later, I attended a second international research conference in Morocco. And I
Mhm.
think when I got there, I was drawing on a lot of the lessons I learned from the one in South Africa, where I was much more familiar with what people were doing there, the different structures. And at that one in Morocco, I was presenting. So I think it was a really great introduction that the first conference I went to wasn't one where I was presenting. I was able to make the most out of subsequent opportunities because I was able to go to the Savannah Network conference in South Africa.
Great, great stuff. Right. So let's talk about South Africa a bit. Generally, if you speak to people, anyone in the world who has heard about South Africa, and you try to ask them, what do you know, what comes up? The first thing, oftentimes they'll talk about the incredible biodiversity in the landscape, which are just breathtaking. It's a tourist heaven, if I'll put it that way. Now, this is one of the things that South Africa is known for. During your study abroad experience, did it involve any interaction with the country's natural landscape or wildlife? And how did that impact your view on conservation and environmental issues?
Hmm. I guess I would say that my study abroad experience didn't just involve these sort of interactions. It was really just defined by them. That was everything. So that's everything from you're at the outdoor showers and you look up and there's a kudu staring at you to, as I was saying before, that being your class. Or when we went to the West Coast, we are doing species identification in between waves on a rocky shore. So I think my interaction with the natural world was the nature of the academic program, which was really, really amazing. And in terms of how that impacted my view on conservation, I think learning about all these different facets helped me see a lot of the controversies in conservation. So before South Africa, I hadn't really thought about the definition of conservation. But with things like the elephants and Kruger, which any listeners you got to read up on, it's a whole big thing. Those sort of debates that were introduced to me made me think a lot more deeply about how we conserve, who we're conserving for, what is the process, what are the outcomes. Yeah.
Right, fantastic. Now let's delve a little bit more before we take a short left about the academics of OTS. So OTS definitely offers quite an intense dive into African ecology. For those who went, we're talking South Africa because that's the course you went to. Those who attend one of the courses in Costa Rica would obviously talk about the same about the tropical rainforest, but let's just keep on track to South Africa. It definitely offers quite an intense dive into African ecology. How did the academic contents, and this could be either lectures or field work or research, I alluded to a couple of them in the past while you were speaking, how did any of this academic content shape your understanding of conservation science, especially in the global context of things, given you came from the US and you mentioned attending an international conference, and post OTS, you've kind of attended more international conferences. Now you're based in Taiwan. So you definitely qualify as a global citizen. So how would you say the academic contents of the OTS semester abroad program help to shape your general understanding about conservation science?
Yeah, this is a great question, one that I really thought about in South Africa.
Mhm.
Um, I really think I learned so much about the different pressures in the global conservation space. So, for example, we learn about conservation during lectures and different strategies that different places have taken to address it. But then in fieldwork, we got to learn specifically about human impacts on ecosystems, or maybe what an ecosystem was like in the past. Um, but what was really valuable is hearing about the different interests that were all represented within conservation. I remember talking about the wildlife trade. That was a very hot topic. At
Yeah.
that conference, I overheard people shouting at each other about wildlife trade. I was actually blown away. Um, but I think it's a really interesting case because wildlife trade is a strategy to raise money for conservation, but it also leaves conservation in the hand of international financiers who just might have conflicting interests with a lot of other communities. So I learned that even if you're just talking about conservation in Mapungubwe, for example, it still is truly global, and that's a lesson that I've taken to all of my subsequent experiences, is thinking about the different interests of people from the community to Western financiers to governments, and yeah, just really considering all of those different interests.
Fantastic. Great. So now let's take a step further post OTS. Well, OTS lasts, this is just general information for listeners. The OTS semester abroad in South Africa lasts for 100 days. And there are two semesters that run every year. You have a semester in fall and a semester in spring, which is one of the semesters that Max attended. Spring runs between January and April, so that kind of beginning of the year. Then it lasts for 100 days. So post 100 days max, you return to the US and back to Cornell. You were a junior then at the time, so you still had around about a year to wrap things up as far as your undergraduate studies goes. And we've kept in contact with you since then, and you've had this very interesting updates for me. The one that really struck to me, which I would want us to kind of talk about a little bit now, is the fact that you did write and talked about you had this incredible opportunity to meet a few influential figures like the finance minister Gondwana and the trade and finance minister Patel back in the US when you returned. How did your time in South Africa with OTS help you to navigate these unexpected and quite high level encounters with this sort of top government officials?
Yeah, for sure. That was so shocking to me when I found out that I would be meeting with them. Just, in my first week working with the US State Department, I was really, really interested in this meeting because having traveled throughout so much of South Africa, having had a great opportunity to learn so much, I was really, really interested in hearing what they would say and hearing what high-level US diplomats would say to them. So approaching that meeting, I wasn't very nervous, and I wasn't very overwhelmed, I think, by the prospect of meeting them
Mhm.
because I had a lot better familiarity with what we were going to be talking about in this meeting, that I approached it sort of as, an intellectual endeavor rather than, oh my gosh, I'm meeting like these essentially like political celebrities. I
Mhm.
think OTS, having that background, really helped me approach it with a more professional mindset and evaluate what they were saying rather than just being impressed by being in the same room as them. I remember just chatting with them about my experience in South Africa. At that time, it was snowing in Joburg. Um,
Right.
so that was pretty surreal. But time with OTS definitely helped me feel confident about my analysis and how I approach these types of situations.
Right. That's fantastic. I remembered when you sent me I think it was a message and email after your meeting, and you told me of that meeting. I was like, wow, that was totally random, but really exciting and completely unexpected. And it kind of made me really that was one of the moments, and I have several of those moments in over the years in my interaction with students on how OTS experience sort of have this completely unexpected impact in the future interactions of the students post OTS that is. And I think this definitely ranks as one of my most aha moments, sort of to say, wow, I mean, during the course of OTS, who would have guessed that a few months down the line, you would be having this conversation with kind of those high level political and governmental officials from South Africa, and having to share your experience in Southern Africa, because we traveled also to a neighboring country, Swatini, while we were there. So that I really found quite interesting, and it made my day having to read that message from you at the time. And I'm glad that we got to chat about that here too. But what else have you been up to after OTS? It's been a while. You've graduated from Cornell. You met these political figures. You were in Taiwan. You mentioned Morocco. So what have you really been up to post OTS?
Wow. Well, what haven't I been up to? Um, I had my summer in DC, which was really fun. And then I came back to Cornell for my senior year. As I alluded to a bit earlier, I joined a research group studying the intersection of agriculture and global development and climate vulnerability, for which I, got to bring a lot of lessons from South Africa. And I completed my own research project on smallholder farmers in Morocco. So I was able to travel to Morocco and present and go spend some time in rural areas there. But I also got to go to Ecuador for 2 weeks in January, where I studied sustainable development in the Amazon. And then I spent this past summer in Panama doing an economics internship with the US Embassy there. Yeah, and now, as I mentioned, I'm in Taiwan. So I've been quite around. It's been a lot of flying,
Right.
but it's been really, really fun. And I can just absolutely say that all of these opportunities that I've gotten are in part due to my time with OTS, both
Mhm.
because it allows me to bring a fresh perspective, and people reviewing my application know that I have a fresh, interesting perspective, but also just because of just the way that I think, how I became a better reader, how I became a better writer during my time there. And it really just set me up well for how I think about all of these different experiences since.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think I would say from now just call you Max Global Citizen, because you've been
Global
all
citizen.
around, you've traveled quite a bit, and it really warms my heart to see you having this impact on a global stage and having all these experiences, because I do believe personally that everything that we do kind of all ties up into the personality that we are, and all contributes into even a greater impact that we get to have in future. So as you kind of build on your portfolio with all these experiences that you're having, it's even going to serve you much more kind of going into the future. But thanks for sharing that experience of what you've been up to. So South Africa, Taiwan, Morocco, done quite a bit of traveling. And I would say probably you should have experienced quite some cultural shift firsthand, coming from the US to in Japan, South Africa, Taiwan, and so on and so forth. Was there any culture shock of all of these experiences that left a lasting impression or taught you something completely unexpected?
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned this because actually just yesterday I was thinking about South Africa because it was the first time that I went to a country where there weren't like hand dryers and hand or like paper towels available like 100% of the time, which I would later find out is like the norm most places. And I just remember being shocked by that in South Africa. I was like, oh my gosh, my hands are wet. Like I have to dry them in my pockets now, I guess. But I think starting with that and then also having experiences in a few other countries has really helped me better understand what it means to be American, what parts of my life are American, and knowing what makes you American also helps you appreciate and learn about any other place that you go. So this small little detail about my wet hands as I'm walking out of the bathroom actually is indicative of how OTS helped me reconsider like the different parts of my identity and help me better appreciate the different places that I go to.
Oh, great. And now you're teaching in Yuli, a small town in Taiwan. Just can you tell us a little bit about this? You did mention being a Fulbright scholar, and that's what kind of led you there. What's the experience like for you doing that? And have your experiences in these kind of diverse cultural settings like Kruger sort of approach how, influence rather, how you approach your teaching in your new community now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to publicly thank Zing, who wrote me a letter of rec for Fulbright. So it's definitely in part to him that I got to have this opportunity. So thank you. Um, but yeah, no, it's really, really awesome here. I'm in a rural area, so which is definitely what I prefer, especially after South Africa. I was like, wow, I cannot be in a city. So it's been super fun here interacting with a lot of different people. And I think South Africa really taught me to sort of let go of my expectations about an experience. Because you can read about something, you can even talk to people who have done something. You can look up pictures, you can watch videos, but this will never be like the real thing. Um, and so South Africa really just taught me to be super flexible. And I learned a lot about being adaptable in South Africa. So when I came to Taiwan, I thought, I don't really know what this is going to be like. I've done my research, but I can't fully know. However, given my experiences, I know that I can adapt and that I will turn this into a successful experience, even though it's hard to have like a certain framework to approach with every time.
And what's your class size like? And kind of at what levels of sort of English understanding the students in your class? Do they come as those who probably doesn't speak any amount of English at all, or do they have some level of English? How has this been? How was your first class experience like? Perhaps maybe I can start from there.
Yeah, Taiwan is very interesting from an educational perspective because it has cram school, so a lot of the kids will attend a few hours of school after school.
Oh,
Um, and so there is very wide educational inequality,
mhm.
especially in rural areas. And so there are students who don't speak a lot of English. So when I interact with them, it's very nonverbal. We might be drawing or we might just be running around. And then there are a couple of students who will have conversations with me. There are three students who are American citizens who have spent time in America. They're completely fluent. So there is a very wide range. Um, it's difficult to address that wide range in one class. I have over 300 students.
Wow.
Each class is between 20 and 30 kids, and I have something like 20 classes a week. So it is definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge that I have to lean on my background in order to meet. But it's also at the same time very fun, very intellectually stimulating to try to, in the middle of class, you're immediately thinking of different strategies, in
Mhm.
real time. How am I reaching this kid at the same time while keeping this kid engaged? Um, but yeah, it's a very fun experience. I get to run around a lot. I get to be super active. That's, I really do want that. So yeah.
And that's something I definitely know you enjoy doing, running around. Because I remember our time at OTS. First, when we were in Hamakuya for the homestay experience, and there were again so many kids, and you got quite a bit of time
Yes.
to run around with them and play soccer. And so I do a lot of nonverbal communication because a number of them also don't speak English. So I guess perhaps that was a bit of a foreshadow of what's really happening now, what you are doing now. Obviously, in terms of numbers, that was nothing close to the 300 that you having to interact with right now. But I guess you had that experience then. And you love to play soccer. Do you still play soccer with the kids over there? Because I remember that
Yes.
was definitely one of my memories with you during the OTs.
Yes, I'm so glad. No, that's something that I've done like a lot of different places, including here. Yes, I do love to play soccer with them.
Uh-huh.
It's always a great time.
Great, fantastic. Now, OTS is known for creating quite a tight-knit community, and I'm sure those who would listen to me interacting with alumni, especially from OTS on this podcast, be able to kind of feel that sense because I always have personal stories with almost everyone that I have introduced, interviewed, or sort of chatted with so far, and those that I have lined up for the futures, because it goes beyond just the classroom environment. I get to interact with these students at the time, alumni eventually, and collaborators and friends to various levels over time. So this is sort of, I would say, something that OTS has been. I mean, you spending 100 days almost every single day with these students would eventually kind of lead to that point where you get to see me beyond just being your instructor or your professor or your academic, and I also get to see you beyond just being a student. I could sort of share tons and tons of stories about you, like I mentioned, playing soccer, running around, having wrestling competitions, and
Yes.
having to help lifting loads and stuff, lots of things. There's so many stories that I can share about you. So now I'm trying to cycle that sort of experience back to you, having known OTS for kind of creating this sort of tight-knit community of students and researchers. Was there a mentor or a pair at Kruger during your time for 100 years who had a lasting influence on you? It could be academically or personally or both. Is there some one person, and I'm sure there could be many, but maybe if there's one who really stood out, or if you could share that at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you just said, there are so many different candidates, both the other students. I could go on and on about all like great times, how much I learned from the other students. You know, the faculty was also unmatched to you and Josie and Liesel and director Lawrence. Everybody was so great. But someone that does really stick out to me is Eric, who was the logistics manager for my time in South Africa. I think from him, I really got into the rhythm of just being helpful as I could all the time, and really having that sort of team mentality. And a lot of people talk about this, but I feel like Eric was just such a solid person the whole semester.
Mhm.
Like seriously, out of like, you know, so many things happened and like nothing could phase him. And I really did look to his work capacity and his attitude as something that I really wanted to emulate. And there was a time when we were walking through rivers during class and I forgot to zip my backpack. My phone jumped out of it wasn't my fault. My phone jumped out of my bag. Um, and I just remember there was a rainstorm, but Eric was willing to drive me and my friend back to the side of the river so that we could go look for my phone. And that's just something I'll never forget.
Mhm.
Eric, I feel like I don't get to meet a lot of really great, like very, very solid people. And so, yes, I always say Eric. Eric's great.
Completely agree with you. I totally. Eric is a number one as far as humans go. He is fully grounded, and I'm yet to meet someone who has met Eric and thinks any less of him than an absolute gentleman who really puts others first and really has this endless amount of energy. And he has this personality. As soon as he steps into the room, everyone
Yeah.
just brightens up because of Eric. And I'm glad you got to share this because I
He's so
definitely.
funny. He was always making me laugh too. Like he would always accuse everybody of being tired, and we were like,
Uh-huh.
no. Um,
Absolutely. That's one of his phrases. You tired. And we're like, no, Eric is like, you are tired. So yeah,
yeah.
definitely worth sharing. Now, before we wrap up, I have one other question and then I have a couple of random fun questions for you. But the one question, because I mean, as an alumni, and we also would want to continuously have students like you attend and experience what you have experienced. Many students currently or in the future who would listen to this podcast would be like you were a couple of years down the line when you were still sitting down in Cornell and exploring the study abroad options that are available to you. Now, if you are to speak to a current student, undergraduate students in the US, maybe let's say at Cornell, who is considering to go on a semester abroad experience, what would you tell them to convince them to choose OTS? I mean, you had other options and you chose OTS. What would you say from your experience now that OTS is worth considering to an undergraduate students in the US?
Yeah, I think something that I came across recently was like this theory in anthropology that says that the urban elite from the US and Europe have more in common with each other than they have with like the rural people in their own country. And so that's sort of informed what I had been thinking about study abroad as well. Like I wanted to study abroad. And the reality is a lot of people will go to the same city in, for example, Europe. And I've heard this from my friends. They're like, oh, this is just Cornell 2.0. It's not, it's not a wholly different experience. Different bars, same people. But I was looking for a challenge. I really wanted to be challenged. I really wanted to have a life-changing experience and I wanted to learn a lot. And that's not to say that that doesn't happen on other study abroad programs, but
Mhm.
it is guaranteed to happen with OTS. Like this will be an experience, a semester that you will grow a ton from. No matter who you are, like I'm sure you have so much to grow from being in
Mhm.
South Africa. If you want to have a really good time, if you want to have fun, if you want to be active, then this is the program for you. Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that. Now, three random fun questions, and probably don't need to think much about it, but I'll just shoot them through. First one, if you could be an animal in the Kruger ecosystem, which would you choose and why?
Oh, I think I would love to be a hyena. Hot take. The hyenas are so underappreciated, but they're so cute. Nobody's talking about this. Like, I feel like I loved seeing them when we were going around, and I think they just need so much more representation. I think I would love to be a hyena and like, change the image that we represent to the world.
Great. Second question, if you could bring one South African landscape of all the landscape you experience in South, if you could bring one back to the US, where would it be?
Oh my gosh. How dare you make me choose one? I don't, oh my if I did have to choose one that comes to mind is the
Mhm.
sunset in Mapungubwe.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
remember
Hmm.
we would all sit at the top of the rocks during
Right.
sunset, and it was just something that I had never seen before. The way that the clouds cut the light,
Hmm.
and just wow, I have never seen. I've seen a lot of, not, Colorado has great sunsets. Like I've been to a lot of great places, but the Mapungubwe sunsets are just it cannot be replicated. It's amazing.
I agree. I agree. That's one of my most best ever places in the world. I would say that Mapungubwe, I would go there every single day. I would live there for life if I would have the chance to. I could sit on that rock every single day and watch
Yeah.
the sunset if I have the chance to. Definitely one of my most loved places. I'm glad you chose that one. The third question, what is a song or playlist that always takes you back to your time in South Africa?
Oh, a song or a playlist that
Do
always
you
takes
have
me.
any? Maybe.
Wait, I'm opening my Spotify now.
Go for it.
Find my South Africa playlist. Oh my gosh.
Bro.
Of course. Oh my God, how did I not think of this? The song Lover by Taylor Swift.
Aha.
Long story short, abridged version. My
Right.
friend and I, while we were during the semester, we learned a dance from the movie Silver
Mhm.
Linings Playbook, and we performed this dance in front of the professors, like these visiting professors from the US, and all the students, obviously, all the staff, like these people from the South Africa, like from sandparks pulled up too. Like we were really performing in front of everybody, and we did it to Lover, and it was just, I think it really represented what a free time it was. Just like how we could really just do anything, and it was yeah, just how fun it was. And yeah, yes, definitely love her.
Fantastic. Thanks. Yeah, I do remember some of those memories as well. But thanks so much, Mike. It was really fun having to chat to you over this last couple of minutes. Totally enjoyed it, and I really enjoy, the time that we spent sort of unpacking what your experience in South Africa was. That was a really good one. So I would say thank you so much for sharing that bit, and hopefully we get to chat again sometime soon in the future. And all the best with your Fulbright fellowship. And how long is that going to last?
That lasts until the end of June. I might do it a second time. We'll see. TBD.
Okay. Right. And all the best with that and all the future plans that you have. We just really here at OTS rooting for you. And I am really excited and can't wait to see kind of what the future holds for you and how you continue to make an impact on a global scale. But thanks for coming through today.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with others who care about science, conservation, and the natural world, or with any prospective students who will benefit from the OTS experience. Do follow us on our social media. We are OTS Abroad on Instagram and Tropical Studies on Facebook. You can also send us an email at otsabroad64@gmail.com. Remember, each one of us has a part to play in preserving these incredible environments. If you're an OTS alum or you're part of the OTS family with stories to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out and be part of the podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll see you back here on the Trail of Science, Tracks and Trajectories for more amazing OTS stories.